Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Mark Holtzman. I'm the superintendent of the McKeesport Area School District. And today I want to take the opportunity to share with you some information, some direction for how we're going to move forward with reopening of schools. But we're going to do it in a series of videos. I want to clarify a few things. There's been some miscommunication, maybe some lack of clarity that have occurred on social media. Social media has kind of misportrayed the leadership's intentions of strategically communicating our plans to the community and getting our students back safely into our schools. Other districts have prematurely released some plans that could likely change with the new guidance that we're hoping to receive from the PA State Health Department. But I will tell you, as you could tell from some of the information shared today, that we've worked tirelessly on planning the reopening of schools, and things are not done haphazardly and are done very strategically so that we can return our children to our schools safely. So with that being said, I'd like to share with you that this is going to be a 5-part series of short videos that clearly states what we know about the coronavirus. What we are able to share with you about the reopening of schools is going to continue into our next video that will be released likely on Thursday, and then we're going to continue on with that process to the following Monday until all 5 short clips are released. In this video, the first of the series, is going to talk a little bit about what we know about COVID-19 from the CDC, from the health departments, Allegheny County Health Department, Chester County Health Department, and Bucks County have put out a lot of really quality literature and information, documentation that we could use to consider reopening schools. We do recognize that things are changing, as I already mentioned, and these things could change within moments based on new directives and expectations from the Allegheny County Health Department or the State Health Department. So weekly, I've participated with Dr. Bogan, who's currently the director of the Allegheny County Health Department, or a representative from the health department, as well as the majority, if not all, of the superintendents in the Allegheny County school districts to discuss how we can appropriately shape where we are to move in a direction to keep children safe. These types of calls and interactions and professional development for me has allowed me to stay ahead of some of the consistent changes and mandates set down by the federal, state, and local governments through guidelines and recommendations. So I want to talk with you a little bit about, I want to share with you throughout this process some literature and some documentation that will help us make decisions. There are things that are kind of reaffirm what I'm saying, and documentation that's been shared with me so that everybody could be comfortable and confident of what we're doing. So I'm going to share my screen with all of you so you can see what it is that we're working from. Okay, so hopefully you can see in front of you, which is a guidance from the Allegheny County Health Department, which is the newest order about wearing masks in public, maintaining 6 feet apart, and expectations about not touching those masks and other expectations. So I want to be clear that Allegheny County is currently under this particular order and is going to be necessary as we move forward, probably likely into the school year, but as I mentioned before, these things could change. So as part of this process, I want to share with you as well a little bit about how you are exposed to COVID. I think there's some misconceptions. According to the health department, you have to be within 6 feet of somebody that has the virus without a mask for 15 minutes consecutively. So the chances of passing by somebody in the grocery store and a restaurant and acquiring the virus is very slim unless there was a change of fluid, somebody sneezed, something of that nature. But typically a mask is something that's necessary to not only protect the people around you, but can protect yourself. It does not protect your eyes and ears, but does protect your nose and mouth from any unwarranted issues at that point. So that exposure, I think, is really, really important to put in perspective, because it's not going to be well, a relative of a relative has been exposed, or somebody in my family that doesn't live in my home has the virus, and therefore I've been exposed. Those things are we're going to talk a little bit more about in the contact tracing efforts and the epidemiology that goes on within the Allegheny County Health Department. That it's something that's going to be handled by the health department. We'll talk a little further about that in the near future. I want to talk next about, talking about the social distancing, 6 feet apart. I think it's quite clear that 6 feet apart in some of our schools, classrooms, areas of that nature could be quite challenging. Once again, I'm going to share my screen to share a document or some information with you that I think will be useful. This is from the Bucks County Health Department that was published in June of 2013. And the question is, why 3 feet minimum instead of 6 feet acceptable in classrooms? Well, I could tell you, and from this document, you could see quite clearly that the current standards successfully in many countries throughout the world have been able to maintain 3 feet apart as long as these droplets of respiratory that can create an infection doesn't travel more than 3 feet. So in classrooms and in schools, we are we have lots of challenges because our classrooms are not very large. So to put children 6 feet apart on school buses, classrooms, hallways, cafeterias are going to be next to impossible with the overall square footage of those particular areas. So in our particular case, we're going to look to move them as far apart as we possibly can with configurations in the classrooms and on buses with what I'm going to share with you in a little bit, the busing circumstances, when the masks are going to be acceptable and necessary, as well as other circumstances to keep children social distance. That social distance may look more like 3 to 4 feet than it will look like 6 feet, but I wanted to share with you that document that showed that information. Okay, next. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has obviously ordered this mask wearing expectation to cover in public spaces and to continue to keep people 6 feet apart. And I want to share a little bit more about that because I think some of you have questions about temperatures and things of that nature. So I'd like to share with you another document that talks a little bit more specifically about why is it that we would not take a temperature reading within our schools. We have approximately 3,400 children and many staff members that make it through our day. So the expectation is going to be families, monitor their children, monitor their children's health and utilize the things at home to determine whether or not your child has a temperature before they leave for school or get on a school bus, due to the fact that it's nearly impossible to monitor temperatures. Also, I think it's important to keep in mind that temperatures are not often accurate because most children are asymptomatic and they do not show symptoms of the virus as they are carriers of the virus. So as you can see, the answer to the question is that the majority of COVID-19 cases either never had fever at all or did not develop a fever until having symptoms for several days. So negative temperature reading is not an accurate reading, and that's from the Bucks County Health Department. Moving on to that, why would masks be required for children on buses, but maybe not in classrooms? So the things that we're exploring at this particular point is determining that on a school bus, because of the close quarters, to wear a mask safely, 2 children per seat, so that they could social distance and hopefully sit with somebody from their family. But as they move through the schools, in the hallways and in the building, they're able to go into their classrooms and remove masks because according to many documents in which we'll look at, they are going to be safe at their working spaces. And if they're asked to move throughout the building or go to the restroom or move to somewhere else in the classroom, they'll be asked to put the mask back on at that time. One of the biggest concerns with masks is not to create another safety issue by resolving the current COVID concerns. Small children, kindergarten, first, second grade are going to have extreme challenges wearing a mask throughout the entire day. So we feel very comfortable that we'll do our very best to make sure those children are able to wear them in the transient areas of the schools. But once they meet their classrooms for the day, they could obviously remove those and continue to learn without being hindered or bothered or have trouble with breathing. Furthermore, our high school or older students, sometimes it's important to be able to identify all children at all times due to some of the safety concerns that things that have occurred in schools, around schools, in our community. So putting a mask on a teenager or a young teen, preteen, could be challenging as well as far as those things are concerned. So we have some concerns with those issues, but at this point there's an order for masking. So we're going to follow through with moving in that direction until we're told otherwise by the county. Okay, talking a little bit about athletics and activities, we'll remain on schedule for reopening. Activities, athletics, band, soccer, football, all those programs will continue. We'll receive direction from the PIAA if there are changes to that schedule, or if you're interested in the plan that the school board passed last month, the reopening plan is on our website for activities and athletics. Okay, moving along, I want to share with you a little bit about contact tracing. So I'm going to share my screen again with you as well to address a couple possible questions that may come about when you think about contact tracing. Let's see here. So as you can see, if there is a confirmed positive case in a student or staff member, do we have to shut down the classroom or school? As you can see from Bucks County's Department of Health, the answer is no. There's absolutely not their recommendation. They're moving in that direction that likely to get results from a COVID test, what we will learn to be accurate is 6 to 8 days currently to get results. So therefore, that particular disease or virus or germs have passed through and no longer exist on any surfaces, classroom area, people, things of that nature in the schools by the time the COVID is actually confirmed. So therefore, there would be no reason to close schools, as we have an expectation of sanitizing and cleaning each of our classrooms thoroughly on a daily basis. So as you can see from this document, it also talks clearly about what are some of the communicable diseases in our schools and how those communicable diseases do not result in schools being closed or shut down. But upon those situations, a student or staff will at some point be confirmed positive, and what are the steps that we're going to follow? And you can see from these steps quite clearly, the health department will notify the schools. So that will not be something the school will be handling. We'll be waiting for notification. There will not be circumstances are taken to identify children and staff members. That will all be handled by the contact tracing and the epidemiology for the Allegheny County Health Department. Up until this point, we're still waiting on some of their guidance as it pertains. But this is the other health department that's talking about how they will explore contacts and how they will go through the process to share information with others that may have been exposed based on a positive test result. So please know that the health departments will manage the situation, will contact the school district and likely your home if in fact they felt that there was an exposure in place. Next, if a household has been in contact with a positive test result, you can see below there that the health department would then decide based on the exposure case investigation information gathered to how long, and even if the student or staff should be out of school under quarantine. So they will determine the quarantine and the results. At this particular point, it is not going to be the school district's responsibility because we are not experts or health professionals currently. Okay. So I want to share a few more things with you as it pertains to this particular situation. It's important to understand that the numbers that are reported, whether it's on social media or in the news, the accuracy of those things are done based on the update of the system. So the system that tracks the COVID positive cases will continue to track them back until the system is no longer backed up. So likely we are close to the middle of July. Some of those test results are returning from week or two previous. Those are the results that are being reported on a daily basis. If there are 100 or 200 positive results those results are not from yesterday. They are from days prior that they are trying to catch up. Right now, there's an overwhelming amount of positive cases and tests that are out there. So therefore, the health department is doing its very best to maintain accuracy on collecting that information. But I think it's clear and important to understand that that does not mean that there were 200 cases yesterday. There were likely 200 cases over a few days prior to that kind of determine those numbers. I think it's important to understand that as you move forward. We will not likely be issued if we're able to open schools, which at this point appears to be our priority moving forward, is to have our students back in schools as safely as possible. We are not, the health department has expressed their lack of interest of shutting down our schools based on a positive test or a number of situations, that those will all be handled based on the guidelines that will be provided, hopefully, by the state health department in a very short period of time. So there's a lot to share there. Hopefully everyone was able to kind of follow through with some of that information. I want to share one more slide with you, share my screen, but I do want to share a few more things. Our next video will discuss the reopening plan of our schools. Topics will include technology. We are going to provide one-to-one electronic devices to each and every one of our children. So we've made our effort with our iPads. We're going to collect those iPads and redistribute new electronics and redistribute those iPads as well to make sure every child, not just every family, has an electronic device in case we run into an issue or we have to do virtual learning. But there will be several options provided in the near future in our videos and how you could access those options if, in fact, you don't feel returning to school is in the best interest of your child. Also, subcommittees have been formed in each of our buildings. We just recently aligned our administration, so we have two new building principals. Mr. Tom Knight is going to be our middle school principal here at Founders, and Mr. David Listorti will be our principal at Francis McClure. Everybody else has relatively remained the same, but they're working together to now develop those subcommittee meetings, which will occur in the very near future. They will include community members, parents, teachers, administration, to hear their voices. But furthermore, we felt, due to the fact that it's very difficult to meet at this time, other than through Zoom, we've provided a hotline that's available to all parents and community members that can provide feedback to the district or ask questions and concerns, as well as an email that will go directly to an area in which I could access and respond to each and every of those questions. Furthermore, at the end of our series of videos, I will do a question and answer session to answer as many, if not all, the questions that have been sent to us through that process. The last thing I want to share with you is the cleaning and disinfecting and the expectations. And I'm going to share my screen for the last time to get that perspective. Sorry, wait 1 second. Okay, so you can see that these are some of the expectations that we're looking to follow through with on a daily basis with our custodial staff and our cleaning staff. But furthermore, we have bought, shields for staff. We've bought masks. We've bought gloves. We've bought the ion sprayers that kills the virus immediately. They're very, very expensive. They're battery charged sprayers that will be utilized in our schools to protect our children and clean our equipment, our desks, and all our materials. Those are things that I think are going to be very, very effective to manage those situations. We're very, very confident that through this process of cleaning and disinfecting, that we'll do a very good job of keeping the children safe as they move through into the next 2020-2021 school year. Well, that's all I have in this part of the video. This is video number 1. Our next video will look at deeply into the reopening of schools. That will likely be released on Thursday afternoon. While I'll talk more specifically about the reopening, what you could expect in our schools, what things will look very different for our students, and you can make the best decision possible on whether returning to school will be in the best interest of your child, or maybe consider our virtual option, which we will have a robust program that will shift from what we used as Edmentum at the end of last year to a more of a face-to-face engaging interaction from your home setting. So please interact with us via our email that we're going to provide, as well as our hotline, so we could use that feedback to improve our process, and feel free to reach out in any other way possible. Thank you so much for taking the time.